Let's talk to Scarlett MccGwire, former Labour advisor. Scarlett, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
So, we can't call it a reset, we can't call it a rebrand, we can't call it a reshoot. What can we call it?
Well, it's actually putting flesh on the bones. Is that Keir Starmer gave his missions, and now what he's saying is that we have to say what they mean in terms of numbers. Journalists are always saying, but what about the numbers? This is too vague. So he puts on numbers, and immediately you say, oh no, this is a complete reset. I mean, what this is just carrying on and putting more policy, putting it on so that actually people know what to expect and what to measure the missions against,
right.
which is really, really good. And so,
well, which numbers are we talking about then? What's he putting numbers on exactly?
Okay, so one of the things that he's doing is police,
right.
and he's saying we're going to have an extra 13,000.
Yeah, that's not true, is it?
Well, it is actually.
No, it isn't. No, there's only be 4,000 new police because the others are already there.
Just a minute. This is according to the Tories. We're going to put 13,000. But what's the most important is...
Well, are the 13,000 police new police or not?
Well, I mean, they're going to be on the beat. That's what really
but they're not new police, are they?
No, but what really matters is that the last government got rid of neighbourhood policing, and that is a disaster.
Well, the police got rid of it, didn't they? I mean, that's the problem.
No, and the government, and it was a disaster, right? Because what it meant was that you didn't know where to go. I don't know whether you've tried getting hold of a policeman or the police. I mean, I tried.
Yeah. When I had my phone stolen, there was a police officer right across the road from me, and I went over and spoke to him about it, and he said, "You better report it online."
Yeah, well, try
so it doesn't
that.
actually. Well, he doesn't actually. So it doesn't actually matter if there's a policeman next to you because he's going to tell you to report it online.
No, but Mike, what I'm saying is that this is going to change.
How?
The whole point is that you don't have police saying, this isn't any of my business. Every neighbourhood has a named policeman that you can go to. Because
how many people is that one policeman going to be supposedly responsible for then? How many people are going to be ringing him up and going, can you help me out with this?
No, I don't know. It's going to be a neighbourhood, right? And it worked in the past.
Did
that
it?
Actually, people knew who their local policeman was, and it worked really well.
I've never known who my local policeman was.
Okay, so you didn't, and it didn't really matter to you.
No,
but to
well,
other people...
it's not something that is feasible, is it? I mean, I don't know how many people you would count in a community, but I would suggest to you that, say, for example, in my community in London, there would be several thousand people, right?
Right.
If they all wanted to get in touch with one person, that's not going to be a very successful plan, is it?
No, because they probably won't. I mean, how many times have you tried getting hold of a policeman? Right. I mean, actually, I think in the last 5 years I've tried getting hold of one once, and I ended up having to ring 999 to say, look, I've had somebody posing as a policewoman trying to scam me, and I think you should know about it.
And what did they do?
And it took me quite a long time to do it. Whereas...
Did they do anything about it?
She offered to... They were very nice, actually. They took all the details. They took the phone number. They took the name that person pretended to be. And look, I think it's really, really important that we get back to neighbourhood policing, because... I
don't understand what the point of it is, though. You haven't explained yet how it's going to improve anybody's life.
Well, I have. I've said that somebody that you can go to them, but also...
Well, you get hold of somebody.
So they understand. Instead of having a policeman who happens to be going past the road that you want to report, they'll go, oh, right, sure, this is what's happening. It's having policemen who actually know their neighbourhoods instead of who are just patrolling in cars. Right. And actually, what it means is it's not just for petty crime. It makes a real difference to terrorism, because a lot of... Yeah.
Some of these people are volunteers, though, aren't they? They can't do anything. 4 hours a week they're working.
What they're doing is they're there to pick up information, right? So that if you're worried about it, if you find a lot of these... things that happen, things like Jo Cox's death. I mean, actually, the people around the man who killed her were worried, and they just didn't know what to do. And there wasn't anybody that they could just go to, look, I'm a bit worried about this.
Well, surely they could have called the police. That's what you would do, isn't it?
Well, we've just agreed that calling the police is not easy.
We haven't agreed. No, I haven't agreed that at all. You said you called them once.
You might find it easy calling the police. When I was trying to call the police, there wasn't a police station. There wasn't a police station I could call. 111, they said, go online. So, as I said, I ended up ringing 999 for something that was not an emergency. And what I'm saying is that this will change it. And it's a good thing, Mike. It's a good thing that they're trying, that actually Labour is trying to listen to what people want and to make things better. That's what this is all about. I mean, it's
but I don't think it's going to make any difference, is my point.
Well, we'll see, won't we? In a year's time, we'll see whether it makes.
So that's the first number. What's the second number then? You said it's all about putting numbers out.
They're going to make sure that 92% of operations are done within 18 weeks.
When?
Which is going to be very, very.
Yeah, when
tough,
though?
right?
When?
What?
When? By when?
I think it's 18 months.
No, it's not. No, it's 2029.
Okay, but it's
a bit of a difference. It's 8 years. You know, we'd be waiting sort of 7.
It's not 8 years. It's
7 or 8 years. Well, yeah, but
4 to 5 years. Look, what we should be pleased is that finally we're having some figures put on things, and all you do is
I'm just questioning. It's my job to question it. I'm not supposed to sit here like a lapdog and go, "Oh, brilliant, Sir Keir, thank you so much for doing something for us." That in 5 years' time I'll be able to get an operation.
Mike, I'm not asking you to do that, am I? And what I'm trying to say is that actually what they're trying to do is to talk about the difference that they want to make to people's lives, and the biggest one is getting the operations. If you can get an operation within 18 weeks, which is still a long time, it will make the whole difference to people.
Yeah, but it won't make any difference for a long time, though, will it? Because they've said it won't be before 2029.
No, by 2029, that means that almost all operations will be like that. But they're all.
But they won't, will they? Because by 2029, our population will have gone up even larger than it is now, and there will be more people seeking help from the NHS, and there'll be more sick people, and the waiting list will actually get longer. That's the problem.
Well, you can't have it both ways. I mean, either it's so far in the future that of course it's going to be easy to get to because it's going to take 5 years, or else you're saying it's impossible. I mean. Actually,
well, I'm saying you can make a promise. Well, you can say it's going to happen, but nobody knows if it will happen. It's a hope rather than an actual expectation, isn't it?
No, it's trying to put a number so that people can work to specific numbers. You're the first person that if I said they're going to make the health service better, you'd say, give me a number. Right?
No, I wouldn't actually. I'd say the first thing you should do is get rid of all the people that don't do anything useful in the NHS and stop handing out hundreds of millions of pounds worth of contracts to companies that don't do any good for the people of this country. I'd say run it better and use the money you've got to slimline it and put more doctors and nurses on the front line and get rid of all your bleeding diversity operatives and get rid of all the people that you don't need who are on Twitter and sending tweets out on behalf of health trusts and get serious. That's what I would say.
What the health service needs is proper management,
yes.
Right? I mean, proper management is actually not the doctors and the nurses.
No.
It's managers, right?
Of course. And there's too many of them and they're no good at it.
Well, that actually isn't true. It's very difficult. It's incredibly difficult running the health service, right? It's very easy if you're sitting in a studio.
Listen, I talk to people in the NHS every day, Scarlett, and they tell me what it's like to work inside of the NHS. And they tell me that in some cases where they used to have one manager, they've now got 7 or 8, right? And these are nurses that I speak to every single day, doctors that I speak to every single day. You know, GPs who tell me that, you know, the government contract is so useless that they're on a work to rule. You know, that was the Tories. You know, the Labour Party haven't fixed it. You know, the problem with the NHS is that it's run badly and it needs to be run better. And Wes Streeting has actually said that he's going to weed people out who are not willing to improve their efficiency. And I agree with him on that. I think that's a good idea.
So this is a good thing.
Yes,
I mean, what we're saying is actually Wes Streeting is trying very hard. He's only had 5 months at it. He is trying to improve the health service. And he's but
there's no mention in this mission statement of getting rid of the people that they don't need. is there?
Because we're talking outcomes. We're talking outcomes that matter to people. What people want is they want their operations done as soon as possible, right? And to do that, you have to completely improve and reform the health service.
Right.
So instead of talking about reform and structures, what they're saying is we're going to do all of this, and the outcome will be that you will have an operation
yeah, but that's a hope,
in
isn't
18 weeks.
But that's a hope, though, really, isn't it? Let me play you a clip from Keir Starmer and what he said before the election.
We've prepared this party for government. We've prepared all of our departments for government. If we are privileged to come in to serve our country, it will be public service for me, as it always has been, not self-entitlement.
That wasn't really true, was it? They hadn't prepared at all.
Well, they prepared as much as possible, but it's very, very difficult to prepare from the sidelines.
No,
I mean, you
That's
must
not
know
true.
that.
Not at all. It's not difficult. They had 14 years to prepare for government. They told us that they were prepared because they'd had so much time to prepare. And so, therefore, when he said we're prepared for government, I assume he meant it. But he obviously didn't.
Mike, within 5 months, Wes has started turning around the health service.
Has he?
Bridget Phillips has started turning around schools. Yvette has.
You can't just say things and just expect everyone to believe them. How has she turned any schools around? Doing what?
No, because she's talking to head teachers. It's head teachers who are going to turn the schools around.
So she hasn't turned them around. She started talking to head teachers, which, as the Secretary of State for Education, that's her job.
Yeah, and what she's talking about is, so she's talking about getting nursery places up. She's talking about and she's talking to teachers in schools about getting breakfast clubs in every single primary school, so that every child is definitely going to have had a meal before they start school, whether it's at home or at school. And
that's for free school meals for everybody then. Who's paying for that? I thought we didn't have any money.
Well, we are.
Well, you don't need to pay for free school meals for everybody's kids. You don't need to.
No, Mike, what matters? This was in the manifesto. This is what people voted for. This is what Labour said that they would be doing.
What, free school meals?
It's really important that actually many children, will not take up the breakfast clubs. But it means that for two things. One is children with parents who need to go to work early, who can drop them off early, right? They can go. And actually, it's children where there isn't enough money at home that they can go and they can get free meals.
It's all a bit nebulous, isn't it, this, really, at the end of the day? I mean, you're doing a very fine job. You're doing a fine job defending it. It's nebulous. You're telling me on the one hand that they've turned around the schools already, and then you have to water it down and say, oh, no, actually, they're talking to them. They haven't done anything. What they've done is have the worst start of any government in the history of politics in this country in my lifetime. You know that's true. You can sit there and defend them if you want, but they have been a complete and utter disaster. Keir Starmer lost the woman that was supposed to be in charge of the first 100 days before the 100 days was up. Sue Gray. Now they're all blaming her for screwing everything up. They put Morgan McSweeney in charge. He spent half of his life as Prime Minister on flights abroad, which he's obviously now had to curtail. He's had the Lord Alley scandal. He's had to lose his Cabinet Secretary of State for Transport because it turns out she was a convicted fraudster. I mean, do you want me to go on? I could go on till 9 to 10 o'clock on this stuff.
I'm talking about what they're doing.
They're not doing anything.
In 5 months, they're beginning to turn things around. I talk to you about breakfast clubs and you say it's nebulous, right? I
don't think it's necessary. We've got an immigration crisis, right? He's not going to talk about that at all today, is he?
No, because we've been talking about it for the last week, right? So there's one is that they're looking at legal immigration. Legal immigration is where it's very, very high. The thing about legal immigration is that the businesses want these people. These are people who come in on visas, right? So the only way to stop businesses from wanting these people is to actually skill up British people so that we're not looking abroad for it.
Well, you had Liz Kendall the other week saying that she was going to revamp the welfare system, right? But there's still no flesh on those bones. There's nothing today about welfare and how that's going to be reformed, is there?
No, because she was talking about it last week.
So these are only things that we didn't talk about last week. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm trying to explain. So what you want is a whole thing about within 5 months of exactly how government is going to look at the end of 5 years. What they're doing is they're saying, this is what we can do, right? But what really matters is so that one of the things is, so instead of talking about growth, what we're going to talk about...
Yeah, because there isn't any growth.
What?
There isn't any growth.
Well, the OECD thinks there will be growth.
Well,
so
the OECD also thinks Rachel Reeves is going to have to put taxes up. And she keeps saying she's not going to put taxes up. So we can go round and round and round. Let me play you a clip from Angela Rayner, because she was on TV the other day talking about all the companies that support Labour.
And we spoke to many businesses. They've been working with us to get the Employment Rights Bill forward.
Can you name a company, a few of them, that have welcomed these proposals?
Well, we've worked with many of the companies.
Name a few.
I've worked with so many of them, and they've very much welcomed the work that we've been doing on making sure that people...
You must be able to name a few, because I can name all the companies, the recruitment companies, Hayes, Manpower, Randstad. They've signed the letter. Which are the companies that have welcomed your employment rights?
Well, like I say, I've spoke to many companies. We've had many roundtables with them from
Will
day
you get
one.
me a list of those companies, and then we can call them and say, do you welcome Angela Rayner's proposals?
Well, there's been many of the companies that we've worked with, like I say, so many of them.
I mean, you know, I'm afraid that's not cutting it, is it?
No, because what Angela Rayner has been talking about is actually making things better for working people, and I think.
Well,
that
why doesn't
really,
she just say that though? Instead of saying that she's got a load of backing from a load of companies that she can't name, why doesn't she just say this is not about getting companies to help be happy about it? It's about being happy and creating good workspaces for the people who work there.
Right.
She didn't say that, did she?
No, but you
don't think she should have said that?
That's what I'm saying.
So if you were advising Angela Rayner, you'd say to her that wasn't a very good performance, wouldn't you?
I always say to people I advise that they should answer the question.
Yes. Well, that's what you're good at.
What
But the trouble is,
been trying
yes,
to
but
do
you've been
with
trying
you.
to, but you haven't got much to work with. That's what I'm saying, Scarlett. It's not your fault. You're trying valiantly to defend one of the most useless governments in history.
I really don't think they're useless. I honestly don't. I really think that we are beginning. It's very, very difficult. It's like turning around an aircraft carrier or an oil tanker.
Yeah, we haven't got any of those
and
left.
It takes time, and I think Dame Louise Casey talked about that you know, if you've got an overflowing bath to pull the plug out, it overflows more when you put your hand in. It's very, very difficult. We know. We always knew. You knew, Mike, a year ago that if Labour got in, that they were going to have a really, really hard time.
I knew they'd be bad. I didn't know they'd be this bad. All right, let me give you given that Keir Starmer's popularity has hit a record low just today, right? How many marks out of 10 would you give him since he's been Prime Minister?
Actually, I wouldn't give him 10, right? But I would.
Thank God for that, because we had the men in the white coats coming for you.
I would look, because what I'm trying to say is.
Would you give him 5?
I think number 10 hasn't been great, but I do think the individual cabinet ministers have been getting on with the job.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's no question about that.
Yeah, Louise Haigh did a great job, despite the fraud conviction.
Louise Haigh actually did do a great job, and
well, no, she didn't. She nearly lost P&O. She gave the train drivers a massive pay rise, which they didn't need, and then they went back on strike again. Right?
And then they came off. But what Louise Haigh did, and what Heidi Alexander is doing, is actually nationalising the rail companies.
Yeah, that's not going to work
either,
is it?
A lot of money, and it means that instead of actually just being told all the time that it's not working, that we could do something about it.
Right. You can be in charge of it not working instead.
No, that we can get it working.
Go, good luck with that.
It's so easy.
Well, why? All right.
It's
Well,
so
if she,
easy
all right.
sitting in a
Well,
TV
no, because if you
studio,
asked me
isn't it,
about
and
what
saying, I would do this.
what she should have done with ASLEF, right? She should have given them a pay rise if they wanted one, 15%, and then said, but in return, this is what I want. But she didn't. She let them have 15%, and she demanded nothing in return. So they've still got their 4-day week. They've still got their bonus payments if they deem it necessary to work on a weekend, and they don't have to work more than about a 3-hour shift at a time. It's nonsense.
No.
So you still haven't given me a mark out of 10. Come on.
7.
I wish you were my tax advisor.
I think it's better. I think it's better than it was a year ago, and I think that it's really, really tough. And I think running the country is incredibly tough.
Of course it is.
That's what we have to understand.
So they should have been a bit more careful about what they said they were going to do, shouldn't they?
Well, they're doing it.
No, they're not.
That's what Mike, that's what they're doing.
Really?
Is they're doing it.
Right, okay.
I mean, all the things that you talk about are sort of, you know, they're, in a way, they're communication screw-ups. They're not about not getting on with the job.
Really?
And that's what the cabinet ministers are doing, is they're getting on with the job.
OK. Well, I look forward to talking to you after Christmas and see how it's going then, because he'll probably be even more unpopular than he is now. So, Scarlett MccGwire, thank you very much indeed.